for wealth, stability, and thriving communities. Owning a home can change the trajectory of a family's life. I grew up on the south side of Chicago on King Drive, which is a street that resonates in many urban cities. And so if you say you are from King Drive, you know I am straight from the hood. I experienced firsthand the profound impact that homeownership can have on our communities. You know, as a proud graduate of the Chicago public school system and my beloved Howard University, you know, I never imagined that one day I would lead a federal agency, getting nominated by the president, confirmed by the Senate, and have the opportunity to sit in a room with President Biden and Vice President Harris at the time and brief them on the housing industry with Secretary Marcia Fudge. And I can tell you, I was up all night studying for that briefing. But just to think about where I came from, the impact of homeownership has just had a real impact on my life, and hopefully that people in our communities can experience the same thing firsthand. I think that homeownership is significant. During the time when I was director of FHFA, our guiding principle was clear. Fairness is inseparable from safety and soundness. We took important steps to expand access to mortgage credit and expand homeownership for communities that had historically been left behind. We entered into an agreement with HUD, the first of its kind, to strengthen fair lending oversight. Secretary Fudge and I also worked together to tackle appraisal bias issues, which is acutely present in minority communities. And you all have heard the stories about having to whitewash your home so that it's neutral when prospective buyers come. That just doesn't make any sense. At FHFA, we required Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to develop plans that would identify and resolve barriers to sustainable homeownership. We also implemented reforms to try to reduce housing costs. Now, these efforts contributed to measurable progress. Growth in Black home ownership increased by 13% and Latino home ownership by 7.5%, which was really the time that was used to make meaningful gains because Black home ownership suffered so much during the great financial recession in 2008, 2009, where everyone was losing homes to foreclosure. But we know that today, many of the initiatives that we started previously have been diminished. Recent regulatory changes have reduced fair lending, oversight practices, funding for special purpose credit programs has been cut, and it really makes it harder to access credit. You know, families across this country are being crushed by skyrocketing housing costs. People are struggling to buy homes for the first time. Fair housing complaints are at all-time highs, particularly for people with disabilities. Property insurance costs are just rising across this nation, and if you live in a place like Florida or even California for other disasters, the costs are just so difficult to attain, and insurance is required for loans that are purchased by, I know, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So if you can't afford the insurance, that's going to be an impact to your total mortgage cost every month. And so these are the issues that we are somewhat dealing with today. But we do know that neighborhoods that were once redlined and maybe still are, continue to lack access to quality schools, jobs, and investment opportunities. And this is just unacceptable. These foundational issues impact families and communities that are still fighting for opportunity. The people who make the least pay the most, especially when it comes to housing costs and access. Where you live matters, not just for the roof over your head, but for the quality of schools, for job opportunities, and the ability to build generational wealth. Equity in housing is not optional. It's essential to ensuring that every family has the chance to thrive and break cycles of disadvantage. By addressing housing inequities, we lay the groundwork for stronger, more vibrant communities where opportunity is accessible to all. Imagine what communities would look like if every child and every family had a foundation to thrive. This vision is the essence of affirmatively furthering fair housing. It's the cornerstone of building Black wealth through home ownership and building communities. Each of us in here has a role in creating a housing system that works for all people, where opportunity is not determined by race, income, or zip code. For developers, it means investing in underserved communities. And we have examples right here of African American and minority developers who know the city, who know the local ordinances, and who can get around all the red tape. Why can't we have more small developers? There are issues of capital, but these are the things that we need to start working on. For policymakers, it means advocating for policies that expand access and dismantle barriers. For realtors and housing finance professionals, it means examining practices for bias and creating pathways for first-time home buyers. Small, deliberate actions taken together can have a transformative impact. Change happens when each of us do our part. I'm hopeful that today we can take one idea, one action, one connection from this conference and use it to make a difference in our respective communities. Ask yourself, what can I do today to remove a barrier or open a door for a family that's striving to achieve the American dream? I'm grateful for your commitment, your expertise, and your time. As you all know, without a vision, the people perish. Let's use this time to share ideas, to forge collaborations, and turn our vision of fair, accessible housing into a reality for Black families in all communities across this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Thompson. So some of you may not understand that the federal system is messed up, but so you can understand it a little better, the GSEs, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, report to FHA director. So they report to her. And they are critically important to us. They are, as I like to say, a private entity with a government purpose, which is creating and financing housing all over the country. So when she took that job, it was no small task, and I'm glad it happened when it did under Biden. Let me just say to you, you will hear, and you're already hearing and reading in the paper, Joe Biden was Alzheimer's when he was there and all of this. I met him in the White House to discuss the whole housing issue, and he put forth a housing program that most of us believe to have been the greatest in the history of the United States. And for whatever reason, we lost that vote by two individuals. I'm not angry with Sandra. But we would have had the most significant injection of money for housing in the history of the United States. And I think it would, right now, this gathering would be one where we are continuing to celebrate what happened. And keep in mind that on this housing issue, the HUD, Department of Housing and Urban Development, has reduced its civil rights enforcement arm to about 4 people for the whole nation, by the way. So that was an announcement about their interest in housing for people of color. That's not on the program. I need to tell you that I feel better now. Thank you, Director, and thank you for all of the work you did. as the director. At this time, I'd like to introduce someone who I know quite well. He's probably one of the most astute individuals as it relates to housing we have anywhere. And I'm pleased to also say that he also is brilliant on the political realm as we have to navigate that kind of a situation here in this in the district. I'm not saying this either because he was my chief of staff. And I'm not even supposed to mention that part of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to present John Jones.
Hello and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning. Thank you, Congressman Cleaver, for that wonderful introduction, for your remarks. Director Thompson, thank you for being here for your wonderful remarks. Look, there's a lot of people in this room who could talk about what Emanuel Cleaver has done for them individually. I could go on for hours in terms of what Congressman Cleaver has done for me. But more important than that, I want to talk about very briefly what Congressman Cleaver has done for us. And too often, even our well-meaning allies see us in the vein of consumers, which we all are, right? And I'm a laborer, I come from a family of laborers. Many of our friends just want to look at us in the context of consumers and laborers, not as owners and entrepreneurs, which many of us are. And Congressman Cleaver has always had the back, not just of labor folks and folks working on the job, but those of us who have sought to be owners as well. And those of us who have decided to be job creators and wealth creators. So thank you, Congressman, for all that you have done on behalf of us. The bell's new, I like that. Gotta improvise. So with the esteemed panel that we have here today, and I can go on and on about the wonderful things that they've done in their careers and lives, but let me get right into their backgrounds and bios. Ashley Thomas is here, all the way from Los Angeles. Ashley is the president of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. With a deep passion for advocacy, he's committed to championing democracy in housing and advancing Black home ownership. Ashley is also the broker owner of LA Top Broker Incorporated, a firm dedicated to real estate and lending solutions and actively works to empower communities through education and policy initiatives. Give it up for Ashley. Next, we're joined by the president of NAREB DC. Her name is Heather Willington, and she's the founder and principal of Cube Development and Consulting, a boutique commercial real estate firm specializing in development, consulting, federal government, project management, third-party development as well. And with more than 2 decades of experience, she has built a strong reputation as an institutional commercial real estate professional in Washington, D.C. and markets nationwide. She leverages her expertise in development and project management to deliver strategic, value-driven solutions while fostering positive community impact. She earned her bachelor's of business administration and finance from the George Washington University and a master's of science in real estate development from Colvin Institute at the University of Maryland, College Park. And she serves as the chairwoman of the board of the District of Columbia Housing Finance Agency. Additionally, she is the director of the board of Compass Working Capital, and she's also a proud member, I've heard of this sorority before, She's a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And finally, we have Kimberly Brown. Because dancing time is limited. Kimberly Brown is a visionary leader and community developer at the intersection of commercial real estate, impact investment, and civic engagement. As managing partner of Housing Impact Partners, she catalyzes the preservation and production of housing by aligning nonprofit partnerships with private equity to advance bold, innovative development strategies. She also serves as global ambassador for Lemont Park Village Incorporated, positioning the village as a cultural anchor of the world stage ahead of the 2026 FIFA World Cup and 2028 Olympics and Paralympic Games. At the federal level, she is advancing housing policy priorities with Congressman Cleaver, including new legislation to expand capital access for emerging developers. Her recognition includes the 2023 Commercial Real Estate Woman of the Year, 2024 LA Times Visionary and LA Business Journal Community Impact Deal of the Year honoree during her tenure at Cushman & Wakefield. She is redefining leadership with impact and intention, connecting capital with culture to transform historically underserved communities.
All right.
So, again, thank you to our panel. I'm going to start with a question for Ashley. You've been in real estate a long time. You understand development from top to bottom. When we have these development opportunities or initiatives that emerge, the political dynamics in terms of them being successful are always tough in many ways to navigate. What can we do to better understand how Black families can truly benefit from the development opportunities that are taking place? Because too often you will hear folks say, look, I'm for the development. I want more affordable workforce housing, in our communities. But people don't see right away the buy-in opportunities that will benefit them. So you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Congressman Cleaver, for inviting us to be part of such a wonderful panel this morning. And I also want to thank you for all of your work and efforts throughout the years. I know you have spent a lot of sleepless nights fighting for our communities, and we deeply appreciate that. And Director Thompson, you have been a wonderful champion at FHFA and beyond for NAREB and its members, and so we appreciate you. And I think it's okay to say we miss you. We definitely miss you. And then I'll go ahead and just also take credit for the bell. I don't know how she got it through security, but we are realtors. I think we have some realtors in the room, as you heard earlier. To answer the question specifically, I think as we look at the landscape of occupations and revenue building in America, we also have to look at, what percentage do we play in those spaces, right? And so in the development space, we typically play a very minor role as Black developers. And so what we have done throughout the years is created a developers academy at our organization to train new developers. And the issue here is the end user. And so that starts at the development stage. So who do you envision is going to be the end user of this particular project? And so having Black developers involved in that is so important for us as we talk about building wealth through Black homeownership. And so if the end user envisions that this project is only going to be a lifelong project for renters, then we miss a gap of building wealth. And so as we talk about breaking ground, which is so very important, we also are on the front line of breaking down barriers to home ownership in the policy realm, because we can build all we want, but if we can't buy it, then we're not building wealth. And so the two have to exist as we move forward. And so we're very thankful to be a part of this conversation on the advocacy side, because that has to go hand in hand with development.
Heather, in a similar vein, I'm going to switch over to you now. When we're talking about building wealth through development, a lot of times naysayers will say, well, if one Black developer gets a project and gets some capital, how does that help me? How does that help my family? Right? How does it help a working class individual who lives in the Black community? Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. And thank you, Congressman, again, for having me here. And it's wonderful to see you all, packed room. So I think what you've heard earlier is Black emerging developers are usually from the communities that they develop in. They know the neighborhoods, they know the people, and they are intentional about supporting an ecosystem that's larger than just Black developers. There are Black architects, Black engineers, Black contractors. Don't let them fool you, we exist. And when we're working together to support our communities, that wealth is trickling down into the community, into these partnerships, and allowing other people to own homes so that we have the wealth in the community and giving back to this ecosystem that has to survive. So that's one way that Black developers are intentional about supporting that wealth. And they're also, it's beyond just affordable housing, it's also market rate development, it's also retail. So Black developers exist and they support their community by giving back and spreading that wealth.
Thank you. Kimberly, next question for you. We were talking backstage about institutional investors, and institutional investors are pension plans or retirement plans and big mutual funds that we invest in, and endowments and sovereign wealth funds. These institutional investors build skylines. According to Harvard Law and the Knight Foundation, 98.6% of all institutional investment in capital are managed by white-owned asset management firms. And so as we talk about the pension plans and the different institutional investors that intersect with our community and many of our public workers, what do you see as the opportunities that are available for developers and those involved in real estate to tap into the capital from institutional investors that has not traditionally flowed into our communities?
And thank you, John. And again, I echo everyone's comments here, just delighted to be here, honored. You actually stole my statistic, and now my statistic is outdated because for the past 4 years, I've been quoting 98.7%, but maybe that 0.1% is some degree of improvement. Not. So again, Congressman, delighted to be here. We're fairly new to your universe as ARAP, African American Real Estate Professionals, but we feel like the past 9 months since we've been in your universe, we've made a significant impact in socializing your legislation and also just serving as an ambassador for you and your works. I was at an event yesterday for another industry trade organization, ICSC. They rebranded Innovative Serving Communities, something. It's an industry trade organization, a global industry trade. Met their CEO, mentioned everywhere I go, right? We're talking about the great work that you do. And again, amplifying that work locally, nationally, and globally. So thank you. Again, the question. Okay, so there's a natural tension, and to Heather's point, because we're in the same universe, and sort of to level set the conversation, and I promise I won't suck the air out of the room, because those of you that have heard me speak know that I can't. To level set the conversation, we are, on the commercial real estate side, we are on the institutional investment grade side. And so as John mentioned, that means that many of our capital markets providers in our universe are those pension funds. Many of you are annuitants and participants in those pension funds, and you designate where you want your money to go, right? So your 401ks, if you've got a 401k with MetLife, and you can let them manage it, and they're gonna have some allocation of real estate. That real estate has to be managed, right? And so they'll hire an investment manager, which oftentimes, Heather, you probably work very closely with investment managers and allocators. And then from there, those investment managers will look to deploy that capital. And so saw a recent trend where, and I'm in the city of Los Angeles, and needless to say, we are the epicenter of it all. And so we've got some very complex problems. So I'm gonna kind of frame my remarks in the context of Los Angeles because it allows you all to kind of pick up some nuggets from there. But we're the epicenter of the homeless crisis. We're the epicenter. We've got the Olympics in less than 3 years. It is looming, and so we've got ice raids. We've got some very complex issues. We also have a Black mayor, and we serve. My business partner's here, Cherie Franklin. She served the last 6 mayors of the city of Los Angeles, including this one. Within 1 month of her starting, she came to me and said, "Listen, I need this organization behind me. You got it, ma'am. We are community developers, so we are civically engaged." So with that said, when I rolled out of Cushman and Wakefield a few years ago, I sent an email out within seconds. All of my clients are those pension funds. Many of your firms, groups that are within Nareit also. Within seconds, I got, oh my goodness, this is wonderful. Now we can talk. We're looking for groups on the ground to invest alongside in your communities. I call our communities historically underestimated because I give the power to our communities, right? So my long answer, to make it short, is it's all in convening and partnership. We're housing impact partners. We bring in our nonprofit partners to scale our deals. Well, we have some influence with that outside capital that you all see pouring into all of your communities at nameless, faceless capital. You need people with influence, access, to be able to have a say in how that capital is getting deployed, because right now that capital is extractive, right? And so, meaning that it's pouring in, but it's pouring out. And we are on the affordable housing side, not to make a nation of renters, but we have a lot of issues that disproportionately affect us, and one is housing, right? And so housing, and it's under attack. So housing preservation is at the top of the strategy. So again, it's partnering, it's access, it's if not us, then who? It's taking that pension fund capital, deploying it, but it gets complex when your capital, when your institutional and private equity capital has a 20% return requirement, because we can't preserve affordability with that requirement, but we're gonna be at that table and we're gonna influence that and make a difference.
That's it. One quick homeowner assignment amongst many is for those of you all who are investing in your company's pension plans. For those that don't know, I'm sure many of you do, but for those that don't know, find out who the asset manager is of that plan, all right? Definitely ask a question to AR or whoever it may be, to HR or whoever it may be. Ashley, next question for you. We talk workforce housing, housing affordability, enhancing the pipeline of projects that can lead to more affordable housing. And there are gonna be some folks who just are fine with renting. There's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of those renters wanna see a pathway to home ownership. So how do we make sure there's a bridge in terms of affordable housing to actual home, long-term ownership?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. When we look at home ownership and we're talking about whether the asset or what the development and what the end user is going to be, I think home ownership and valuations is so important for all of us. I just really want to touch on what we had yesterday in terms of appraisal bias and policy, which is so very important to us. As developments come into cities, we start to see a change in valuations, right? And so we used to always take this cliche to say a black neighborhood value would just stay here until there was some development. But what we're really saying is there's a different demographic moving into that neighborhood, and that's what's changing the valuation. Yes, we want development, we want a better way of living, but we also want the opportunity to own where we're living. And so the true valuation that we have to find first is our valuation of our neighborhoods prior to development. That's number one. Number two, we have to be a part of the development so that way we can ensure our participation in the ownership as we move forward. We also released a State of Housing in Black America report. As part of that report, we talk about when black people move into the neighborhood that's developed, the values go down. And so our valuation has to be self-contained. We have to find our own values, develop our own properties, and rock with that process from beginning to end. Cradle to grave is so very important as we talk about homeownership. But I want to also mention when we talk about policy, because I think when you, Director Thompson, we had a great relationship while you were serving in that role, because we could have fair, honest conversation. And one of the conversations that we have to talk about is income inequality in America. As the prices go up and I'm in Los Angeles too, and I think we probably shouldn't say the word affordable at all. We shouldn't even be allowed to say that word coming out of Los Angeles. However, every city has an affordable metrics, and so as we look at that, we have to say, what is the income that's allowing you to be able to participate? Capital, being able to access capital. on the developer side, as a black developer, are you able to access capital to do your project? Number one. And then when you do the project, is the buyer, the black family, able to access capital to buy it? If there's gaps in there, we're developing projects for other neighborhoods and other communities, and we're not being able to take a part of it. So I think that valuation is very important, and participation, but it starts with policy.
Yeah, great answer. Thank you for that. Every panelist on this stage, including Congressman Cleaver, they are barrier breakers. Heather, you're a barrier breaker. And you have a job that many of us believe is very cool and exciting. And we want to see you dominate the market. Right?
Yeah.
We want to see you grow 10x, right? Folks are rooting for you. And every other panelist on this stage. What are the biggest barriers to scaling black development opportunities?
Thank you. You know, first off, we talked on access to capital. I think everyone is very aware of that black developers, I believe the percentage was 3% of commercial developers, and it's going down due to a lot of policy changes that are taking away funding and taking away programs that let us have that pre-development money to get started. Most of our counterparts are able to pull from family and friend funds that go way back hundreds of years that we don't have that access to. So access to capital is very important. It's also policy. When you're working in these cities, and DC has, you know, affordable is an interesting word here too. We're not quite like LA, but we're up on that list. Working with cities to make sure that the buyers can buy, and that is when you're putting aside the RFPs and the RLPs for black developers, making sure that they can actually respond to them. It's okay to say this is for you, but then if you still have the pre-development requirements that we can't, you know, fund, or that you have that timeline that's 3 years out, our money is expensive, and and there are people asking us 20 questions where they're asking someone else 10 questions because they're getting just the benefit of the doubt. So we need a partner in this from the city. We need a partner in policy that allows us to scale as we're working in this ecosystem and bringing other individuals along with us that know the community, that know, you know, the person who wants to live in that house. And then we're also looking at first-time home buyer programs are wonderful, but we also want that growth buyer that's coming up from their first purchase, and then can go into that bigger house and step up so that we can make space for the next first-time home buyer. So working with developers, and that will allow us to scale in our city and grow beyond that because we know the needs of our community, we know the people who are moving in. So it's a partnership between cities, access to capital, and policy.
Where's that bell? Kim, I want to go to you now. When we look at across the country, in Los Angeles, where you've had communities that have grown in value, in part with the benefit of transportation projects that have come in, infrastructure projects. You've seen it in LA, you've seen it in Chicago, Brooklyn, New York, and even here in Washington, DC, whether they're new bus routes or bike lanes or what have you. But we've seen with these developments and the rise in value, we've seen some of our folks and families pushed out of these communities. This is the serious trend. What is your recommendation or advice in terms of how we mitigate that going forward?
Again, we have to, and I love this question because Los Angeles is fairly new to transit infrastructure. And so we now have a fully built out a train system that can get you virtually anywhere in the city, including the LAX, because again, we have an Olympics coming in less than 3 years that is supposed to be carless. So with that, understanding that our issues are complex, so there's been a boom in transit-oriented development, right? So much of it is speculative. And so what that's done is it's actually created another problem because now you have, and listen, we coin them Kleenex boxes. Like they're these structures that lack design that are going up all over the place. Well, we also have some policy that created kind of this boom, and now in this current administration, subsidy, voucher placement, and by the way, I think in 2024 voucher rate, Nareit, I think I saw the largest one bedroom was pushing up to $4,000 a month for a Section 8 voucher, that's what, so we could underwrite deals to that scale back in December. Okay, as of January, it's a little bit more complex. But nevertheless, so that pressure, that tension between trying to make LA a less reliant upon cars, which is an uphill battle because we are reliant upon cars. So now you've got developments that don't have parking, right, all over the place. Now you have the current administration that's put pressure on the situation. So now you have all these projects that were built over the past couple years with no parking, and we have no vouchers available. We have no subsidy available. So now you have all these buildings with no parking. You're not going to attract market rate tenants. So now you got a bunch of vacancies sitting out there. And so we had a conversation with the city last week, and so they know that this thing is looming. Well, Housing Impact Partners, we see an avenue, and where I'm going with this is through our nonprofit partners. We have two particular nonprofit partners that I will tell you that we co-invest. We don't do tax credit deals, we do debt and equity deals because we are creating shared equity models for our nonprofit partners as well. So those, number of them are Black-led or we're serving Black populations. So it's important for them to have a piece of equity, and it's important for our community to have some shared equity as well. So we are creating a model, and by the way, we're at booth 305, come see us, Humanity and Housing, we can talk about it. We are creating a shared equity model at Housing Impact Partners where we co-invest alongside our nonprofit partners, right? The people concerned in the Coalition for Responsible Community Development serves South Los Angeles. Those of you who are from LA, actually, you know CRCD. Those are our partners. We co-invest, we bring them to the table. Well, remember that institutional capital that we talked about earlier? We're going to influence that capital. You're not just going to pay us a fee, right? And I'm going to credit my business partner for this, taking our thematic approach to it all. We're going to have a shared equity model because it's important for the people of these communities. We're deeply rooted. We're born and raised in South LA when it was South Central, right? And so my mother, for 62 years, still lives in the same home. We're seeing our communities be transformed. We need to create models where the people from within our communities can co-invest alongside this 98.6%, right? And so this is what we're catalyzing, this is what we're doing. We're talking about at booth 305, and we're sharing with other developers across the country how this model works. One quick, and then I'll get off of it. What we found since January, because all of our deals suddenly didn't pencil, and so we've got a hotel deal on the table now that's over 200 units in downtown LA at Chef's Kiss Prime. We're going to dedicate the building to transition aid youth in the community college and some of the colleges serving that. We're also teeing up the hotel. Our ambition is to get it ready for LA 28 for the Olympics, to also be a place where young people can come and stay for the Olympics. But so what we've done since January is we've kind of reworked our stack. And so we're moving to, and then we're demonstrating to other developers that taxes and bonds are a great solution to help the deal pencil. And so that's kind of boxing out some of those institutional relationships, but we got to preserve affordability for our people first. We're P5, public-private partnerships, philanthropy, and people. Emphasis on people.
Okay. And then also, you know, obviously, LA didn't have parking before these developments went up. Just to be clear, I love pointing the finger, but I don't want to point it just at that situation. But I think this is a great topic that you bring up in terms of what happens when we're not involved. And so as we talk about getting out and voting, but we're not showing up to city council meetings where these decisions are being made. Then we have a 200-unit complex with no parking on Crenshaw and 3rd and 43rd, okay, I'm gonna call it, and all of the cars that have to park in that unit flow into the neighborhood. Now the neighborhood is upset and they're demanding parking permits. And so they said, well, we want parking permits. And then the city says, well, we can't get parking permits. And then now you have permit parking that the city is getting revenue from because now they have to charge for the permits, right? And so if you can't afford the permits, then you don't have parking when you come home, and now you're upset, but we missed the meeting. And so if anything, we walk out of here today, just like we showed up here, we have to show up, even if you're unfamiliar with the topic at hand, you're facing a room, makes them change what they're saying. But if we're not in the room, we can't hear it, and they can say and do whatever they want. So we have to show up. So when you leave here, I encourage you all to do that.
And I just want to echo that, because as the developer and I walk into a room and people are like, well, why is that here? Why is that here? And you start to see the signs and you start to complain. Timeline-wise, that was planned 5 years ago, 3 years ago. So when you see the sign and you see the construction, I'm not saying don't say anything, but the opportunity to say something was at the local meeting when every developer has to come before the community, and hopefully they're from the community, they know what you want, but sometimes they don't. That's where you say your voice on what it should have, what kind of retail you want to see. Make the requirements for local retailers to have a percentage in there, or local community ownership, which is taking off in multiple cities. So we got to be boots on the ground for all of the things ahead of time and not when it's too late.
And I'm going to piggyback on all of this too. I'm going to get in on this. And so there are people from within our communities that have influence to access and access to it all, right? And so we are here, we are figuring out ways, we are demanding, right? And so we are, and even that nameless, faceless capital, no, we're holding. I got a call from a big pension fund. Many of you probably participate in it. They go, Kim, we would love to do a tour. This was last year. We'd love to do a tour through ARAP LA, through South Central. I go, okay, listen to me. We kind of boxed a little bit. We had a rough conversation. Okay, here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to roll a Sprinter full of outside people who are looking to invest in the community because the communities are vulnerable. What you're saying is that you're looking at this from a speculative standpoint. You're almost looking at this from predatory, right? Like you're looking for opportunity. We're looking for stability, opportunity for growth, and affordability preservation. So we're not aligned. So I'm not going to do a tour. I did do a panel in all honesty. But nevertheless, it's just striking the balance with that tension. That tension exists between the appetite of this outside capital. We know someone who's he's head of impact investment for a global private equity company. He says, Kim, I've raised $12 billion. I need to see every deal. If you require an 18% return, we can't give you that because we got to raise the rents to an unaffordable level in order to give you that. That's just an investment for you. That's just a commodity, right? We're talking about the people and the communities and what Heather and Ashley have conveyed about the ripple effect. They don't get it. We're making them get it. If you want to come in and
So, all great answers. We're going to get into our final thoughts. I just want to say, a lot of great panels going on. This is not a panel about sports, entertainment, music, all good issues. This is a standing room only panel. Not talking about any of those issues, again, which are important. And that in part is because Congressman Cleaver sees not all of you, not just as consumers of real estate, but potential investors. As we head into final thoughts, Congressman's a former mayor, much like Maynard Jackson of Atlanta, Georgia, who passed away some time ago. The 1996 Olympics transformed Atlanta. It was a generator for Black wealth in Atlanta. That was in part because of what Maynard Jackson did in terms of ensuring that Black wealth creation would be a part of this infrastructure of the city that had been denied to African American investors for so long. Talking about allies again, we have to have uncomfortable conversations. Maynard Jackson could not get a job with a law firm in Atlanta after he left. He had to go to Chicago, right? He was in the documentary, he was ran out, right? This is what happened, it's a sacrifice. But on the dawn of, as you mentioned, the Olympics coming to the United States, the World Cup, the 250th anniversary of the United States of America.
Nope, yeah.
A lot of events, a lot of celebrations, a lot of income, a lot of consumers, a lot of tourists. This is for the panel. What can we do to ensure, because no one's going to save us, let's take the outside folks out of this, right? What can we do to ensure, especially in these cities where we have a lot of political power, to seize the opportunities to grow income and access for Black real estate professionals?
Pick me. Okay, so I am global ambassador for Leimert Park Village, which is a cultural anchor of South Los Angeles. And so with that said, very much aligned with Mayor Bass. Mayor Bass has told us in closed doors, and I don't even know if there's a closed door, but she has said, listen, this Olympics will not be west of the 405, which is a metaphor for those of you that know Los Angeles, was a metaphor for, no, not this little small circle around UCLA that's gonna enjoy this economic benefit. No, this is gonna pan out. So I actually am aligned with her international affairs in her office. She sent us on a cultural exchange mission this past summer. We went to Paris and we got in on a few jazz festivals in the Netherlands and Toronto. That's another story. But never where I'm going with this is, so equity has to be embedded inside of these games. It's not an option. It was in Paris. We met with Paris 24 with the folks that showed us how their historically overlooked communities were able to feast. They had an area called Ile Saint-Denis. Look it up. It was coined Africa Station. It was a fan zone. That community, we made links with their mayor. That community is still in, put that community on the map. They're Black community, they're a diaspora community. Put them on the map, they're still enjoying economic benefit, they got to eat. Here in LA, this is what we are doing. This is kind of my charge, I'm a convener. So we are building coalitions. We are making sure, particularly South Los Angeles, which now has a train line, which wasn't gonna have a train stop at one point, but the community, led by my business partner, made sure that our community had a designated train stop in the cultural anchor, in Leimert Park. We are right now, all those capital conversations are swirling around because they want to get in on it. We will make sure equity is embedded inside of these games in Los Angeles, and those billions and billions of dollars will be deployed and fanned out, including Long Beach. Inglewood's gonna take care of itself because Inglewood is Inglewood, and now it's a different animal. But that's a huge charge that I am and some others are leading globally, and so we're gonna make sure that we're gonna have some coverage.
Heather and Ashley, Heather, closing remarks before we pass it on.
A lot of what you've heard here is intentionality. So she's being intentional about community impact when the games come to LA. I'm putting on my chairwoman hat. We're being intentional at DCHFA, making sure that we can save some of these Black and brown developers that are struggling right now, because all this policy that we put in place, if they wipe out pre-development funding, if they wipe out programs, fair housing, all the things, we're not gonna survive. So it's being intentional about taking a smaller little interest rate, making a little bit less on that deal, making a little bit less money so you can bring in a partner so you can spread that wealth. So we have to move with an intention, because we're the only ones that are gonna save ourselves, and it's turning inward to our community to do that.
And I'll just say, I want to thank both of you for all the hard work that you do, being Black developers and the developers in the room. That's a hazardous job because as we sit here on the homeownership side trying to secure capital for a $250,000 purchase, you're trying to secure capital in the multi-millions to get a deal that can flow back to our community. So the only thing I would leave with this group is check on your people. We need to do this as a community. It's from cradle to grave. And so, yes, I appreciate this work that we're doing, and we got to continue to work on barriers to homeownership. One last thing I'll say, we have to identify the problems as we move forward with this administration, look at the problem and try to find a solution within that. We are pushing forward. Kansas City has a great opportunity for housing vouchers to be converted to homeownership vouchers. We need to scream about that a little bit more to give people access to homeownership, and for 15 years until they can wean off of that, because if not, they might get cut anyways without a home. And so we want to continue to push legislation that way. Thank you.
Let's give our panel a round of applause. Again, thank you all very much. We just got a couple more things to do. Speaking of which, I'm going to also thank Director Thompson as well. Again, Congressman Cleaver and the entire panel, all of you. And speaking of capital, now we're going to invite our sponsor, Capital One Bank, to say a few remarks before the congressman closes it out. Okay, thank you very much. But thank you to Capital One for sponsoring, and now allow me to bring back Mr. Congressman Cleaver.
Thank you, John. Thank you to all of you who are here, and particularly this panel. This is an amazing panel that we've been able to put together. There is some bad news and good news. The bad news is that we can't depend on the federal government to help us. In fact, in many cases, they will be working against us. And so this is a different moment than it's been in the last 50 years, and they would like it to add some years to it. And what I think the good news is that we have brain power to make decisions and work in our own communities in a way that we can create what we want. The World Cup is coming to Kansas City, one of the sites for the World Cup. We can argue with people in the business community. I called a meeting of all the African American businesses in our jazz district to talk to them about, figuring out a way to get them there. We have to do it on our own, and not expect any help from the federal government. They don't want to help because they believe that we have too much already. And so that's why you have the attacks on DEA and frankly, attack on everything and everybody. So we have to figure out what our ancestors did and do it again. And they built the communities, and we can do it again. We are stronger and tougher than any group who's been oppressed in the history of the planet. We are African Americans. We are the great-great-great-great-granddaughters and great-great-great-grandsons of the people who built the empires in Africa and the people who blasted away segregation in this country. We can do it. That's who we are. The do-it people. Thank you for being here. God bless you, and go out and do it.